we as women are rhythmical and cyclical. We have a biology and an operating system and an intelligence within our bodies as men and women, and we are not honouring that.
What you think's happening in the world with men and women, where there's a lack of control and there's a lack of feeling like things are right.
If I'm trying to be like a man, operate my days like a man, that is not going to work.
What do you think is causing so many men to lose emotional control and not take responsibility?
You don't just flick a switch on. They've had fathers that have treated them like that. Their fathers' fathers treated them like that.
How do you actually define success compared to what the status quo would tell you?
Well, I think that's the question everybody needs to ask themselves. Is waking up and doing what it is that you want to do to start your day success to you? For me as a woman, it is my responsibility to learn my body, to know those things, to express and articulate those things. What any of us are experiencing on the inside is feedback.
A lot of men struggle to communicate that with their partner. How would you frame that conversation?
Well, the first point would be...
Maxine, thank you so much for being here. You are a professional bodybuilder, right? You've pivoted quite a bit in your journey. And, you know, I was researching you before this, being alive and turned on for life. That is a very, very interesting concept. So do you want to share with us a bit about where you were before and where you are today and what created this shift for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for having me. Thank you for asking me to be here. Yeah, it feels like whenever I get to share this story, like lifetimes, right? Yeah. So many different things over the last decade. Yeah, I started as a personal trainer and I loved to train. And there was a lot of stuff going on in my late teenhood, early 20s, where the gym was one of those places that I just felt so at peace. There was no noise and I didn't have words to describe it the way that I could now, but it was just like, that's the exhale that I felt every time I was in that state of sync. And yeah, then I fell into the world of bodybuilding. Mm-hmm. I was an amateur competitor, so I never went pro.
Okay.
But I did compete for 4.5 years.
Yep.
And so I did back-to-back shows. I came second at a national title. I did the IFBB, was my last show, so the Arnold Classic. And I finished, I think, top 8 out of a massive lineup. So I was really like stoked with that. But on the other end of that, there was a lot of stuff that I hadn't yet fully dealt with. So the reason that I ended up seeking something like that was because I wanted control.
Yep.
And I didn't realize that that was a big driving force because I felt like so many things were outside of my control in those, I guess, pivotal developmental years. And yeah, post bodybuilding, I became really ill. And there was a lot of stuff going on within my body that was emotional and, you know, trauma-based. And I just didn't know how to unravel because at that point I also had a lot of knowledge. And I think this is where my journey's probably landed me now, and the path that I've had to walk is this integration piece. And I feel like so many of us that seek, you know, wanting to grow and evolve, there's so much information and there's so much amazing stuff out there, but we can't bypass the integration. It doesn't matter how much knowledge we seek. It doesn't matter how much we learn or surround ourselves by good people, or like they're still external to a degree. Because ultimately, until we're living it and until we give ourselves this space to really land in the things we know to be true, and that when we meet those points of friction that we don't default to the old stuff, that we can actually meet it with curiosity, and that we allow ourselves to be more easeful and joyful, even in the points where it feels sticky and it's like, this is shit. Yeah. I don't want to feel this way, you know. Even that, it's like now if I ever experience those feelings, because I absolutely do, it's like, oh, that recognition of that's when I like throw a tantrum within myself. And I'm like, what's that actually about? So that whole journey of being, you know, in a body where I looked very physically strong, and I was, but I was very depleted. And then going from that to being in a body that was extremely depleted on all levels, and I was not strong. And like I could not even walk 200 meters without needing to sit down.
What happened?
I had just a host of like imbalances and things going on within my body. I mean, I was on the pill, which kind of started everything coming into bodybuilding, and I came off the pill and I didn't have my cycle for many years. And then that just was one of the underlying root things. And then, yeah, I had a whole laundry list of physical symptoms that they couldn't really find a actual, I guess, diagnosis for, but it was resulting then in a lot of food allergies and symptoms. And then I just started dropping weight because I was having all of these issues with food. And then I was frightened of food. Like, it was just insane because to me, again, like I had all of this knowledge and I couldn't understand what was happening. But it was also like the stripping of all of the masks that I was wearing.
Yeah.
And I had to fully, I guess, clear the slate. And I'm a believer of the fact that if we're here to teach things, we're here to walk them first. And I guess it gave me a different level of compassion and empathy for when we're in such a state that we can't see beyond where we are, that sometimes knowledge is not enough.
Yeah.
And this is where, to me, I had my first experience, true experience with God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going deep here because this is just how it happens. But that was my first experience where I was given the opportunity. I could stay or go. And I actually felt this like out of body experience where I could have left my body. It was, I can't even explain it. And then I had this vision of being a child and like all the different stages of life. And I had like this voice that was like, you can stay, but you're going to come back just as fast because you haven't finished while you're here.
Yeah, that's powerful. And it is deep, but it's also something we all get to experience. A lot of men and women, they struggle with control, whether it's losing control of their thoughts or emotions, losing control towards people they love and blowing up, you know, that inner child you talk about, throwing the tantrum. How many times do we hurt the people we love because we lack control? So talk to me about what you think's happening in the world with men and women where there's a lack of control and there's a lack of feeling like things are right when you're not turned on to life. What do you think's causing that for so many of us? Why do we feel that way?
It's a great question because I think many of us will sit with this at some point. And to me, it's we're out of balance with our divine design is how I like to label it, because we have a biology and an operating system and an intelligence within our bodies as men and women. And we are not honoring that in how we're living at large. Of course, if we have chosen the path of exploring ourselves internally and, you know, bringing in good physical practices, that's not necessarily going to be the experience you're having. But if we look at society at large, through my eyes, we are seeing that operating model still being a real thing. And right now we're at this pivotal point where it's not working and we're seeing the, you know, the bodies that are not well, the relationships that are breaking down, the societal structures that are completely reorganizing themselves because what we've been doing hasn't been working. So to me, it's like, can we bring it back to, again, that divine design and honoring the fact that we as women are rhythmical and cyclical. So that's a really important piece to me when we talk about aliveness. Like if I'm trying to be like a man and, you know, operate my days like a man, that is not going to work. At some point, your body's going to give out or you're not going to feel excited about life. You're going to be resentful to the people that you're pouring into because you're giving everything and you don't feel like you have anything for yourself. And that's a cascading effect where in time, the body will break down because there is no way we can maintain that. So that, I feel, is a really beautiful place to start, because if we can recognize as men and women, and this also comes to, you know, how we relate in our day-to-day lives with men and women, the understanding or the even just the willingness to be like, what is different for you that I don't experience or understand? And could you maybe explain it to me? And that doesn't mean you're going to understand it straight away. But, you know, if it's like, well, I'm at a particular part of my cycle and you are feeling really energized and excited, like, let's go, like, I've got stuff to do today. And, you know, your partner or a woman in your life, it could be a sister, a friend, whatever, is like, I'm 2 days out from my bleed. Like, I just actually really want to rest. And you're just like, that's not fun. I don't want to rest. Or, you know, like whatever kind of story we may create around that, if we can be a little bit more respectful of the fact that there is that difference and how can we support one another, to me, I feel would make such a massive difference in how we organize things. And to me, ultimately, the onus is on us as individuals. And for me as a woman, it is my responsibility to learn my body, to know those things, to express and articulate those things.
Yeah.
And then, you know, having spaces like this where we can have conversations between men and women so that there is a dialogue between both sides, that it's not being spoken at or that it's, you know, this thing where we're pointing fingers because that one has always stayed with me, 1 out, 3 back, right? It's like, you don't get what I'm saying, or you don't understand, or like the world is this, that, and the other. It's like, well, yeah, maybe it is, but we get to decide if we participate in that. And it doesn't mean it's easy, because it means we need to make changes within our lives. It means that we make adjustments in how we show up when the world says go fast and you're like, well, today I actually need to go slow. It's like, oh, well, that can be jarring because we all have societal imprints that we carry. And it's like, well, do I want to measure up to that? Or do I want to measure up and honor the fact that what's going on within me right now, this is my capacity.
If you're getting value from this podcast episode, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the bell icon. It allows us to reach more men, to keep more families together, and to give you more value with the guests that we get on board. So please do me a favor, hit subscribe, hit that bell icon so we can give you even more value. Yeah, but that's hard to do because the world is so fast now. I've got 2 young kids and a wife, and when she's, she hasn't had her period for a few months because we had a kid. Mm-hmm. But I remember when she'd get tired, stressed, emotional, I'd react because I see her and I'm like, I've got shit to do. I'm running a business. I'm trying to provide. Why are you making my life so hard? For her to slow down and switch off, I judge her for that. And then I also judge her for how she's showing up. So what are the most common things that men misunderstand about women? One of them's the cycle. We can dive into that because I think a lot of listeners are going to go, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right? What are the most common things you think men misunderstand about their wives or partners?
I feel that the things that attract you to us as women are also the things that will in time potentially irritate you.
Tell me more about that. What does that mean?
So we're emotional, we're felt sense. If we are honoring our, again, divine design, and we are in that space where we allow ourselves to be in full expression, we're going to feel more than you do. You see a problem, solution. If that's like, if you are in that pole and you are focused and you're driven and you've got, the first thing you hear is, okay, well, this is how you're feeling. Let me find a solution for that feeling.
Yeah.
It's like, no, what I actually need in that moment is to be heard and to be seen. And that can be enough. I'll figure it out. And if I need support in figuring it out, then I will ask. Mm-hmm. But I think that's also something that we need to learn, because there's this real martyrdom that I feel has crept into how we show up in the world. And it's like, particularly for women, and I'm not yet a mother, so I can't speak from that lens, but I did have the privilege of nannying for 5 boys, so I got to see what goes on inside a family unit. And to me, it's like, we don't need to give at the cost of ourselves. But that means if we're in a partnership, we need to be able to ask for support and not be met with, but you're not doing this because I'm doing all of this, and that's not necessarily easy when life's pressures are there. But I do feel if there is an agreement and also the understanding that, hey, this might be 3 or 4 days of a month. Mm-hmm. The rest of the month, she's on, she's like fully available, she's there. But on those days, and it might not be that you can offer the support, but how could you lean on family or friends or create those systems and support structures around you that can step in when you can't?
Yep.
So that burden isn't one that feels like is creating resentment or burnout or, overburdening for either people.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is going to happen. So then it's also, to me, like, how do you deal with that? Because I'm not somebody that believes in perfect. I'm not of the belief that even when you're doing these things and that in this work that you're going to show up like that all the time. Like, it's just not going to happen. Yeah. We're human, because, that might be one pressure, but throw some children and a business and other things into the mix. It's just like, it is life. But how do we meet that? So that's my, sorry about that. That's my number 1 point.
Yep.
And then number 2 is the fact that we are not meant to do all of the things that men do. And that's sometimes rattles cages, and particularly with the feminist movement and all that sort of stuff. It's like, well, just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah.
Is my belief. Again, we are not the same as men, and we have really powerful strengths and lesser strengths for a reason. And if we can come together in recognition of we are actually each other's teammates, and this is not just in a romantic relationship, but just as a whole, men and women are the yin and yang for a reason. And if we are working in harmony and seeing each other as teammates, as opposed to this opposition of like us against each other, because that's the real, looked at the Industrial Revolution and all that sort of stuff. That's when we started bringing that real thing where men and women were against each other, because now we're fighting for jobs. Now we're fighting for a seat at the table. And to a degree, like, I don't want to take away from the fact that it has given us so much as women in terms of being able to contribute in, this modern world and being able to do things outside of the traditional roles. And I mean, that is another conversation. Yeah. But I feel that even in that, if we can still remember though that what we contribute is different for a reason, and that just because again we can doesn't mean we should.
Yeah, but let's say I agree with you, right? Let's say you're a man listening to this right now, and you've got your own shit. We all do, but your wife or partner is not. You don't feel like she's supporting you. You feel that resentment towards her, whether it's from her being on her cycle or an argument or something like that. And you know that she's not meant to carry the same weight as you. Like, let's say you're aware of all these things. How do you begin to unravel that resentment? How do you begin to let that go? Because you and I both know if that continues, it destroys a marriage. And the reason I asked that question, I have one client in particular, when he's turned on to life, things are good. But as soon as he's not turned on, he starts judging her for all the things she's not doing, for how she's not showing up, for all the mistakes she's making. And I can see that pattern unraveling his relationship. He knows it's happening. He knows there's resentment there. He keeps repeating the pattern. So to that sort of man, where does he start to like let that go and heal that?
Well, you don't let it go because you keep repeating it. But the finger pointing out and the three fingers pointing back that I shared earlier, like that is where it starts. It is not her. It's how you're responding to her.
So taking responsibility.
Yeah, but then it is also, if it's really something that's bothering you and there's a consistent pattern within that, you need to take the helm and have a conversation. And you do that in a way that it's not like, wanting to provoke a clash or a conflict. That's not it. You need to come to it from a place where you're feeling balanced and steady within yourself, and then bring it to the table. Because to me, it's like, these are conversations we need to have. If that's irritating you and you're not sharing that it's irritating you, then how is your wife supposed to know, or your partner supposed to know?
Yeah.
Right? Like, these are, to me, where unresolved resentments arise, is because they're not expressed. Now, in the expression, it doesn't mean that she's the one that needs to come with a solution or that she needs to change anything. But if she's also aware that that's going on, again, when she's in a place of balance and being able to just have a conversation with you and not coming at it from like, I'm being attacked, well, then you can find some middle ground. Because it's, again, like every time we push something away and we suppress it and we don't talk about it, then when we're charged, that's when it comes forward.
With tone.
Exactly. And sometimes not even with tone. It's like the subtle like slamming of a cupboard or leaving stuff out. Like, again, that tantrum type behavior of like, I'm not being met, I'm not being seen, I don't like what's happening here, but I'm not going to actually talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you experience the wrath in a different way. And nobody wins. So to me, if that is your experience and you're that man, that would be the first thing, just the recognition of what's actually going inside of me and why am I actually so frustrated at her? Have I actually spoken it? Have we had a conversation about it?
Yeah.
It's different if you've spoken about it, you've asked or you've met on what some potential changes could be, and then nothing changes. Then your frustration, in my belief, would be rational and reasonable.
Yeah.
But if it's because there's not even been an opportunity for something to change because you haven't spoken about it, well, then to me, I'm like, you're kind of helping to create that. And is frustration something that you enjoy living in? Because that is where it's your responsibility, not necessarily getting her to change anything, but what you're experiencing or what any of us are experiencing on the inside is feedback.
Yeah, it's all feedback. And when you say it out loud, it sounds so childish because we've all slammed the door and we've all grunted in response. And when you look, if you were looking at yourself from the outside in, a fly on the wall, you'd be like, I'm a fucking child. But we keep repeating this stuff. And you just said something. Do you enjoy living in frustration? No one does, but we keep fucking doing it. I think a lot of it comes down to men losing that word again, control. And we don't have emotional control. As a man, you're told, harden up, stop being a pussy, don't cry. The Industrial Revolution is very pertinent because that's when things started to shift. And there's like this imbalance of masculine and feminine now. And men don't know how to be men and women don't know how to be women. But I think men get to take charge and have that emotional control. What do you think is causing so many men to lose emotional control and not take responsibility? What's the problem here and how do we fix it?
I think that's really multi-layered and it's intergenerational.
Yep.
What you touched on there, like you don't have emotions, you harden up. What you're asking men to deprogram and unravel and rework is generations worth of suppression. And I think we as women really need to remember that, because it is a big task and a big ask. And that's not to say it's, it's so hard and all, it's work like anything. But we also need to remember how long this has been going on. And you're asking them to flick a switch on something that you don't just flick a switch on, right? They've had fathers that have treated them like that. Their fathers' fathers treated them like that. And this has been the ongoing theme. And we're really in this shift now generationally, where we're encouraging men and we're asking them and we're creating spaces for them to sit and to explore and to enter spaces and places that they haven't yet felt safe to or had permission to. So that would be like a really big piece to what's creating all of this and why, because it's just been passed down and nobody said it stops with me.
How do we stop it? Because you talk about being tapped in, turned on to life. That's so weird for a man. Like, how do I emotionally tap in? How do I turn on to life? And I teach this shit. I've been teaching for 8 years.
Yeah.
This morning, I took my daughter to CrossFit. She's crying. I'm like, Talia, stop crying. I start yelling at her. I'm like, fuck, I'm my dad again. I teach this stuff. So like, I'm not emotionally tapped in sometimes. And I'd like to say I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
How do you become emotionally tapped in as a man? Like if it's generational, cool. But like, how do we fix that?
Create pockets in your day, because I think this is sometimes what happens. We overcomplicate it. We're like, we want like this magic bullet. Like, what can I do that's just going to fix it? But that's not how it's necessarily going to work. It's creating pockets in your day where it could be 5 minutes that you actually just go somewhere that's quiet, somewhere that you're just with yourself. And to me, somatic work is a big piece in what I do, getting people back into their bodies. So for me, the invitation would be, when you're in that 5-minute pocket, have your phone on flight mode, make sure you're not disturbed, close down your eyes, trace your breath. What does that feel like? It gives the mind something to focus on, right? Because we need somewhere to park that. If I go tell somebody, please go sit in meditation, and they've got a busy mind, they'll look at me and they'll just tell me to get fucked, because they're like, my mind is active. I don't like meditation. I'm like, okay, great. Well, can you trace your breath? Can you follow where that is going? Great. Once you've anchored that in, do that for 3 to 5 breaths. What's present in your body? Where do you notice tension? That is literally what I would start with, because this is sensory orienting you to your inner experience. Now, where I would go a step further with that, once that's kind of like solidified and that feels comfortable, you start playing with emotion. So if you come into that space and you're feeling really frustrated, take the breaths, land in the body. How does frustration feel in your body? What cues is your body giving you when that emotion is present? Because when that happens, when we are in the moment of day-to-day life and it comes up, so it might be anger, it might be whatever you bring to that 5-minute pocket. When it comes up in life, day to day, we are far more able to recognize it and then catch it, right? When we're asking for people to reprogram things, the awareness needs to precede that for anything to follow that through in terms of change, because without awareness, we don't know what it is that we want to do differently. So that is a foundational piece where I would begin if this is your experience and this is something that's coming up regularly. And it's simple, but it's a commitment. So I would do that for anywhere from 14 to 30 days. And it sounds ridiculous at first, because it's like, why would I just sit with myself for 5 minutes? Well, because your whole life is full of everything else but you. If there is so much frustration that it's coming out and spilling out on other people. And children are like an extra element. Because it's like, and again, I can't speak for my own children, but having had those 5 boys that I nannied for, they were from like 0 to 8. And I would see when I would get frustrated when they would all come at me and be like, I want this apple and I want it cut like that and I don't want it like that. And I'm like, but when I had the time to reflect on it, that's actually not about them. That's because they're demanding what they want and need. Whereas, so to me, it's like, where did I not feel it's okay to ask for my needs? I probably wouldn't do it in the way that a child asks for it. But, you know, like if that is creating something inside of me, I might not be able to catch it in the moment. But again, if it's something that comes up regularly, that's where I would go into reflection and be like, interesting. What's that really about? But I can only access those answers when I'm safe in my body.
And that's so challenging to do for most modern day men and women as well, our niche as men, right? You're busy, you've got a business, you've got a team, and you feel like you're constantly putting out fires. And the underlying emotions of fear, stress, anxiety. But to slow down for a minute, it sounds so simple. It requires a deep level of commitment. And then we tell ourselves the stories. I don't have enough time, I'm too busy. But then the pattern repeats. Now, taking it a step further, a lot of our clients, we teach them how to slow down and breathe and journal and understand their emotions and go through their breath. But nothing shifts sometimes. And let me explain what I mean by that. This is the first year of my life that I haven't been living in stress. The last 8 years of business, I did the somatic work, the breathing, the journaling, the reflection. I did it all. And there was this pattern where every 2 to 4 weeks, I'd go into overwhelm. I've got journal entries, everything's fucked, nothing's working. I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? It took me 7 years to get to this point. Why did it take so long? And how can we do it faster? For anyone listening right now, because a lot of people are doing this work you're talking about. Like, why does it take so long for some of us? And how do we make it happen?
Well, there's two parts to this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's your journey and you want to bypass the journey because you want, give me the fact sheet, give me the how, let me do it. I'm a master student, let me get it done. But there is an element of us that is not of this body, of this mind. We are also a soul. And we also are here to learn particular things. And if we try to bypass that learning, we are not going to embody and integrate it. And we are not going to change at the level required for those things to truly change within our reality. So there is that piece. And sometimes it takes as long as it takes, right? And it's the thing that moves the bar each time is when we get frustrated with the fact that we don't think we're moving fast enough. And why isn't it here yet? And it should be like this and it should be like that. If it was meant to be like that, it would be like that. And we don't like hearing that when we're in this situation. But it's the everyday deposits. And this is where training is such a playground for me within this. And this is that masculine expression for me as a woman, where I get to see that. Because it's like, I don't always see progress straight away. But I know that if I show up, it doesn't matter how I'm feeling, it doesn't matter what's coming up for me that day, I will see progress at some point. Now, if I focus on the process of what I'm actually doing, without fail, the progress happens so much faster because I'm invested in what's in front of me. I'm invested in what I'm doing. So when it comes to wanting to speed up the time it takes, focus on what you're actually doing because sometimes you're ticking a box and you're saying you're doing all the right things, but are you present? Are you actually there? Are you fully in the experience of what it is that you're doing, or is it another box to tick so that you can say, I've done my journal entry today?
I can relate to that so deeply. Because it's like you're doing it because you have to or need to, and you just do it so you can tick the box, but you're not in it. Like you have no presence. And that's a big problem is presence is lacking for society. Presence and peace go hand in hand. You strike me as somebody who has quite a bit of peace within yourself. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So talk to me about your journey with presence and peace and where it was before and where it is now. Because I think a lot of people can relate to the chaos. And then, like, are you in peace most of the time? What's shifted for you? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'd say truthfully I am.
How does that feel?
Like that. An exhale. Because
can everyone just sorry to interrupt. Can everyone just do that? It feels so good and then we forget it. So yeah, please tell me where you were before and where you are now.
You know, I, like so many, have that story of attainment and achievement. And I was really young when I got into the world of bodybuilding and training and all the rest of it. And I had a business, a personal training business, and that grew really quickly. Whilst I was doing all of that, I was burning the candle at all ends. I had things to prove, you know, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to go pro. Like I had such drive and force and conviction, and I love that about me. I know that I've still got it in me now, but I use it when I need to, not as my standard. And from having the experience of burnout, it's like I had nowhere else to go but be with myself. And I couldn't use any of my outlets that I used before that. So spending 18 months and 12 of those months in a severely depleted, unwell body I had to learn to be with myself and create an internal environment that I enjoyed and that I liked myself and that I loved myself, because it started with like, I didn't love myself. And I think that is sometimes, self-love, all these sorts of conversations. Yes, but sometimes you don't love yourself. And like is an easier, thing to reach for. So what did I like about myself? That process, and eventually it did turn into love. But peace is also a choice in the sense that, am I going to let something external to me disrupt my experience of the now moment? And these are things that are just over time, the last 10 years. I've been doing this since I was, 18. I got into the fitness world, and then my first coach I had when I was 20, and I'm 33 now. So it's been a big journey, but it's a choice that I make every day, and I'm not here all of the time. Like, I don't want to portray myself as some kind of, Zen master and that I'm like this always, but definitely more times than not, that's the state that I'm in. But again, it's a choice, and I do not allow the world around me to dictate how I feel. And I think that level of self conviction almost and trust in the fact that I've got me has probably been the foundation for my peace. That I know I have me no matter what is happening, no matter who's trying to get my attention or distract me with things or try to pull me into, whatever's happening over there. And I test myself on the roads the most because when people cut me off or people do things that, would absolutely irritate me, I can feel myself going into it. And I'm like, what are you choosing? Peace or reaction? Because I also know how that feels in my body, and I don't like feeling reactive all of the time.
Yeah.
So
That peace as a choice is so powerful.
yeah.
It is a choice, and it's just something we forget to choose. And do you feel like a good analogy for you is bodybuilding? The more you work a muscle, you do bicep curls, it grows.
Yeah.
The more repetitions you do of peace in those moments where someone cuts you off, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
And you're a human, so sometimes you'll choose chaos.
Legit.
Or frustration. But it's not about being perfect. It's about having more of those peaceful moments, which a lot of high performers struggle with.
Yeah.
How do you balance wanting more? Because most of us need more money, more success, more clients. How do you balance wanting more, not needing more, while also having peace? Because I could see us going too far to the other side, and you do become just a stoner who smokes weed every day. And it's like, life's good, bro.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you feel we can, or the listeners can, choose peace while also having great big goals and achieving more because they want to, not because they need to?
Well, even in that, you get to choose peace, because to me, it's like those things are symbiotic in the sense that when it's something that's really meant for you, what you're investing into that needs to come from a place of peace. If you are frustrated, if you are like frantic, if you're living in a state of like heightened, I must get, because that's the survival response within the body, and the body doesn't differentiate between that type of survival and actual literal survival. We need to come, in my belief, to that space from a centered, grounded space. So peace, even in the stretch, is a choice. And that is the mastery. That is where it gets really fun, because that's where you get to test yourself. Because otherwise you do become that version where you're so placid and you're just like flowing in the wind, and you're like this, like, I picture it just like literally getting thrown around through life. And that's not it either. We want to be anchored and grounded and solid, but we want to come into that experience from a space of presence, in the sense that, okay, what does this require of me now? I have the bigger vision, I have the bigger goal, I see where I would like this to go. But it's also then allowing, if it's something that is a goal, let's say in business or in personal life, sometimes we think we want something, but it's actually taking those steps in the direction of that leads us to where we need to go. So we don't always know exactly why it is that we're starting this grand big vision. But if we think that that is the only way to get there, and because we're operating from a space where that peace and that presence is not actually the default, we sometimes get taken on paths that aren't meant for us.
Yeah, and that's misery.
Yeah. And that's also the lesson and also the learning. So I'm never somebody that's like, oh no, you shouldn't, if you need to go down that path before you recognize that that doesn't work, and that creates burnout, and that creates stress, and that creates distraction. Because then we're also looking outside of like, what are we measuring this by? What is your version of success to you?
Money and success. Like it's literally for most men, money.
Yeah.
Just grow your business. How do you figure out what success means to you, and how do you figure out what you actually want? Because you've probably had this experience with clients. We think we want the car and the house and the holidays and the toys, and then we're not happy. Like we don't enjoy any of the process. So how do you find what you want, and how do you actually define success compared to what the status quo would tell you?
Well, I think that's the question everybody needs to ask themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, I can't tell you what success looks like for you. You know what success looks like for you. So it's like, to me, we outsource and externalize so many of these things. And sometimes it's actually really helpful. I'm not, somebody that's like, oh no, you should never measure yourself against anybody, because people that say comparison is the thief of joy, I don't fully agree with that. I think sometimes comparison shows us what it is that we want. And it can be a really beautiful barometer for pushing us a little bit further. But when it comes to our version of success, it's like, is waking up and doing what it is that you want to do to start your day success to you? Or is waking up and diving straight into work your version of success? I can't tell you what's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But it is really important that we stop and we pause, and it can shift and change, right? If you're in a relationship, success may look differently once you're in a partnership. Success may look differently once you're a parent, right? So it's like, can we allow that question to be revisited in the different seasons of our life? Because I think sometimes we get locked into an old dream or vision because we said that we were going to do that thing, and then it no longer fits because the season of life has changed. And there's a fine line in that, because sometimes it's also, that could be the cop out of like not finishing something you start.
Yeah.
But if it's done with a level of discernment where it's like being honest with yourself, then it shouldn't do that, because then you are actually being truthful about, well, this is not what I feel is success, right? And the outside world is very, very noisy, and especially in the times that we live in with technology and social media and all that sort of stuff. So the ideas that we borrow, or the ideas that we think are ours, we really do need to spend time with asking questions like, is that legitimately my own, or am I taking this from somewhere outside of myself? And is it intergenerational? Is it societal? Is it, my own disbelief in that I'm worthy of having a nervous system that feels good? And we don't know this, but this is back to that like kind of joke about the frustration. Do you enjoy living in frustration? When I said that, it wasn't just like, do you actually enjoy it? As like, of course you don't, but you know it. So it's, you enjoy the feeling because it is something that you can preempt.
It's comfortable as well, even though it sucks.
It sucks.
Yeah.
But it's familiar in the sense that you can recognize it. So it becomes like this safety mechanism that's not safe, but because it's so consistent, that's how it comes up.
Yeah.
So it's even with like, again, the question to success, it becomes really easy to rely on the world around us. And then we get there and we feel like we were lied to. Well, that's not actually the outside's fault. If we had paused at any point, and often we have had many, many, many times where we've felt something out of whack and we're like, this is not where I'm meant to be going. It could be like a little health niggle, it could be a relationship blow up, or it could be, and it's like, no, we just keep going. And it's like, well, those were your opportunities to do something with the fact that something wasn't working.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this Reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man, TONIEMPOWEREDMAN. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying Reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches.
And slowing down is the key. I'd love your support on this. So I just moved into a beachfront apartment. It's been my dream to live there. I have 2 beautiful kids, and my business is running itself more and more. So every morning, 5 days a week, I take my daughter to breakfast. I've always wanted that. That's my version of success. I feel really uncomfortable. Why is that? I think for me, and I'll speak into it, I'm like, this is what I've always wanted. But my mind's thinking about all the shit that needs to be done. And I could be working right now. I don't want to work. My success is slowing down. And not a lot of our listeners can relate to that. Going to the somatic work, what is that? And how does one reconcile that? Because I think that is success, but it feels uncomfortable. How do you use somatic energy or healing to reconcile that?
Well, it's the start of the recognition again. Like
Yeah.
it always goes there. But to me, it's also like if you have been operating in a state of chaos and you've still been able to create success or thrive in that version of the reality, when the chaos is no longer there, you're still looking for the chaos.
Yeah, I'm waiting for
Yeah,
something to break.
yeah.
I'm like, why do I feel so uncomfortable?
That is
This is horrible.
And that is why, because peace doesn't feel comfortable straight away. And this is something that I don't think gets spoken about enough in the healing journey, because you get to a point where you've dug up enough, you have explored the past enough where, you know, like you get it. You can, to the degree to which is required, understand why you do the things that you do, where they came from and how they're operating in your life. But there comes a point then where it's like, and this is the tapped in, turned on piece, where it's like, now you actually get to prime your nervous system for what it feels to feel good, to feel safe, to feel like there is enough, right? And that is beyond survival. That's when we step into thriving. But that is really unfamiliar for so many of us. So like we get this push-pull, and this is a luxury. Like this is a first world luxury. Like don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this is the standard for everybody, and particularly given the terrain of the world right now, like I don't want to be inconsiderate of that. But it is like when we get to a place where we have the luxury of being safe enough to actually experience this, it is going to feel uncomfortable because it's like, now what do I do with all this free energy I have within my body when I'm not on guard and on alert all of the time? So even with that, it's like we don't give ourselves enough credit for the fact that we've been able to create an environment where that's even possible.
Yeah.
So for me, it would be that self-recognition and coming back to like, thank you. Thank you for making this possible for me. And bringing it back, like forget about all of the other external things, you know, family, loved ones, all of that. Like this is the moment where you bring it back to you, because it's like you're experiencing something that you may not have experienced in your life before. And you were the one that helped facilitate and create an environment for that to be possible. So that would be my invitation. Like, and what does that feel like to really honor yourself in that way? Like, I did it. I've created a new template, because this is ultimately what the children after us, whether they're our blood or whether they're the ones that we've got around us that we're imprinting on, you know, this is what they get to see as their standard.
It's funny because that makes me a little bit emotional, because I know you're right. And I teach this to so many men, and I feel so grateful for what I've created for them and for myself and my daughter. But I feel like the next level is being able to truly embody it for my daughter, because I don't feel at peace. And it's like, then the guilt comes with that, right? Like the guilt and shame of, well, when will you feel peace? But I know it comes back to sitting with myself and saying thank you, and actually having that self-love you talk about. Because self-love is a deep concept. Like very few of us actually have it. You look in the mirror, you don't like the person staring back at you. Maybe it's your weight. Maybe you know you don't follow through on your commitments. And there's a little piece of you, maybe it's the little child that's like, no, you're full of shit. So that's a very powerful concept. Thank you for sharing that. I'll definitely take that on board.
You're welcome.
You've talked about divine design. We've got here integrated and embodied learning. So what are some practical daily rituals we can use to go into that and actually understand ourselves, our divine design? A lot of men are going to hear that and go, divine design.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. So
and
like,
I don't blame you.
yeah, I would have been the same a few years ago. So how do we implement some daily rituals to understand? One is making time for yourself. What else can we do to understand our divine design?
So when I say divine design, I think like, because that can feel a little esoteric and a bit fluffy, I want to break it down for the men that are listening, because ultimately what sits underneath that for me is your biology, right? So it's like we have a biological innate intelligence and design that we were born with. It is what it is. It's either that or that, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it's like the understanding of our physiology is really important. Like men, you have a 24-hour cycle. Literally, that's how your hormonal clock runs. You are like clockwork. Every 24 hours, the same hormonal cycles produce and repeat. Now, of course, if there's interference because there's stuff going on physically, that's another story. But women have a 28-day cycle. And our hormones are literally fluctuating and moving on that whole 28-day span. And there's two really significant pieces in that puzzle, kind of the pre-menstrual part and then the post-menstrual. So understanding for you where it is that you feel most energized would be the first thing. Like really looking at that and being like, okay, where do I have the most available in my day to be with myself? Having a physical movement practice. I know that this stuff gets spoken about all of the time with reason, right? Because you can dial in. You may be doing these things, but be honest. Like, are you truly showing up? And sometimes you're doing more than you need to get the benefits as well. Like training 6 days a week is not necessary.
Yeah.
Putting 100% into every session and trying to smash yourself is not necessary. It's actually probably going to create more harm than good. So when it comes to an inner practice, sometimes journaling and those things, like, they're too much of a stretch. So can you go for a walk? Can you sensory orient? Like, can you practice presence through being in your environment? So what I mean by sensory orienting, it's like literally, what do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? What do you taste? Going through that process with yourself and finding something, whether that be, if you're on the beach, some grains of sand, like in your hands, like hold them, feel them. What are the sensations and textures that are there? That is presence embodied and practiced. That's not presence as a concept. That's being where your feet are. Yeah.
Which, by the way, is so foreign for so many men.
Yeah.
Like, it sounds simple. What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see? It's like when you see something that's been there the whole time, like a tree or something. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's been there the entire time. It's so rare for us to actually see it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a human thing, I think, like, especially in this day and age. But that practice is like the stuff that we've spoken about until this point. That is it. Because then when you take it and transfer it across into other things like your work or your family, whatever, like, presence doesn't feel so foreign or like you need to escape from where you are. It doesn't mean don't vision cast, don't like have forward thinking, don't have plans, don't have strategies, don't have things you're attaining or wanting to aspire to attain to. But again, like, the way in which you meet those moments is going to be far less stressful for everybody, not just for you, when you're able to really sink into what's needed right now, not into what your plan has already preempted and decided was necessary before you got there, right? Like, can we meet what's in front of us? And that is a practice through, again, knowing ourselves and showing up for ourselves daily. Because if we don't know what's going on inside of us, how on earth are we supposed to show up for anybody outside of that and do that with a place, from a place of like, I see you, I care, I'm here for you, I'm fully like available.
Yeah.
Because we're not, if we're not doing that.
Of course. And doing that while also running the business and having the team, being present with them, then being present with your family, then with yourself. That sounds like a tall order, but when you can truly create that, you have that peace. Like you said earlier, I've got me. What a powerful phrase. Speaking of, you said earlier just before, stress, like it's not a good time for anyone. Building depth versus surface attraction. I want to dive into that. So let's say you're a man listening to this right now. How can a man develop magnetic presence and become attractive just outside, not just physically, right? Because you're a woman, you know, how can a man become attractive to a woman and have that magnetic presence, that depth? What does a woman want?
She wants to be heard and seen, but she doesn't want a counselor.
Yeah. Sounds simple, right?
It sounds so simple.
Don't try to fix everything.
No, but I think like show interest. You know, I think we're so busy being interesting that we forget to be interested, right? Like, can we really be, again, where we are? Like, we want to be heard, but we also want you to communicate with us and to, you know, bounce back and forwards with us and not feel like we are trying to pry things out of you, you know? And that's not to say you need to be open like a flower because you're a man. That's also not the expectation that I think many of us hold. But somebody also that walks their talk. To me, a very attractive man is somebody that follows through with their words. And if you're not going to do it, don't say it. Simple. You know, nobody's saying that you need to commit to something that you don't want to or that you don't think you can. So for me, like, that is so valuable because I also know how much that can break trust in relationships. And having seen with my own clients over the years, particularly because I work with women, like the friction points that come up for men and women is often around that particular thing. You say one thing and then you don't follow through, and then they're keeping track and record, and not intentionally. But then it's like, now I can't trust you. And that's not attractive Because if I, and this is something that I do my best to hold the standard on myself, like if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if life's, then I find a way to work around that and to, you know, if it needs to be adjusted, I do that. But yeah, those are two traits that I think create safety, because ultimately there is such a big conversation around safety with men and women. And I am in agreement with a lot of it, but I also think that sometimes it sways a little bit too far the way that men must create safety for women and that there's no responsibility on us.
Yeah.
Which I don't agree with. But that piece around attraction, it's like, do you also know that who you say you are is who you are?
Most people have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
So let's say you're listening to this right now and you know you don't follow through. You know that you judge your partner. You're not in tune with her feelings. You're not curious. We've all been that person. A lot of men build half-built bridges. Where do you even begin? Because it sounds so simple. Just follow through, create trust, get curious. It's not fucking rocket science. But let's say you repeat the pattern of not doing those things. You just keep fucking doing it. You listen to the podcast. I'm going to take action. I'm committed. And then it happens again. Your confidence drops. How do you begin to shift your identity and being to somebody who follows through?
Look for the small wins. We look for the big ones because we can see them and they're the pain points, right? We're like, okay, well, I see that I need to honor my word to her. If I say I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be home at 5 o'clock. Sometimes that's too big because then you can see all the times that you don't do it. So that failure, that I'm not good enough, that whatever cycle, that loops that's there, we reinforce it. So we need to go for something far lower down the chain. You know, if you've got a dog, maybe it's committing to walking the dog every day at the same time. If you know, get your morning coffee at one spot, like be on time to that. Like find other ways and other places in your life that you can be on time so that you can prove to yourself that you can in fact be on time. And then apply it and transfer it over there and look for more of the wins than the losses. So I'm looking for majority of the time, not for all of the time. You know, I can let it slip if every now and then somebody's late or whatever. It's like life. I get it. But if that is the majority of the time, that shows to me, because this confirms then as my view is like, well, I'm not important. And there's another dialogue that's happening over here and that's for me to check in on. But if that is how I'm starting to feel, everything else is prioritized above me, then this is where like we're getting these mismatch in expectations and communication, and then the magnetism and attraction starts to fade away because it's like now I'm doing everything by myself and I can't trust you because da-da-da. Like, so then it just becomes this big thing from these little incremental every daily kind of times that we don't honor who we say that we are or that we have agreed to. And so it's really important that we take the time to find the small wins on the things that we're looking to change at the larger level, because it's our responsibility, right? And yeah, you could do that with anything. That's just one example. But it's like, if you're somebody that doesn't follow through, cool, go to the gym. Make that your new goal and commitment so that you can actually see that that's not true. Your new truth to shift that internal reality is to actually have the evidence that that is no longer the case. If you can show up for 30 days to the gym or movement every single day, it might be 4 days gym, 3 days just walking, and you have proof that now for the last month I've done that, well, you're not somebody that doesn't follow through. You're somebody that's making a choice not to follow through. You're not incapable of not following through. And that, in terms of identity shift, well, now you've got conflicting. You've got conflicting data. And when that happens, then it's like that is where the shift in identity is possible, because you're no longer that old version. And the new version is now one that you either opt for and choose in, or you stay there, but that's also a choice.
It's all a choice. And the word evidence is so powerful. You prove to yourself that you deserve to be confident and have that self-love. How would you communicate to your partner that you need to change these things? Let's say you address, you don't follow through, you get angry, you get triggered, you get frustrated. A lot of men struggle to communicate that with their partner. They don't want to appear weak, but part of taking responsibility is taking ownership for your role in something. So do you have a framework or a way a man can communicate with his wife or partner? Hey, I listened to this podcast. I've realized some things I get to work on. This is what they are. How would you frame that conversation?
Well, the first point would be like just making sure you're in a good space. You know, like go for a walk, go do something, go gym, go like ground into the body. Make sure that whenever you decide to have this conversation that you are solid and clear of mind and you're feeling calm. That's number one. Don't go into this like straight off the podcast and being like, yeah, I'm ready. And like, I've got all this, like, and let's go. Like, and then you're like, yep, I'm going to do, like, it hasn't had a chance to fully mull over in your own mind.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you to find your own words for it, because if you want it to be received, when it comes from your heart and not from this like fluffy, like, oh, I have to feel all my feelings. Like, no. When I say heart for a man, I feel that is grounded. Again, here's that word, presence. I'm here. There's something that I'd like to share. Are you open to hearing it? That's how I would start, you know? And I've noticed these things about myself. And then I would come with, what is the solution that I'm going to bring to now this thing that I've identified that I'm doing that isn't working for either of us. And this is what I'm going to do. And this is my commitment. And I know that in the past, you can go through the times that it hasn't worked out and that you haven't done what you said you were going to do. But look for what it is that caused those things to fail the first time. Because is it, okay, well, you're too rushed or you're too stretched or whatever. Like, this is where you can ask for some support. Because if I see somebody in my life and they're actively going about wanting to do better and to change, I want to support that. I'm not going to shoot you down. I'm going to be like, okay. And if there's been a pattern of it not succeeding, I'm going to be cautious in how invested I get into that, but I'm still going to support you. And I'm going to let you know that. I'm going to say that I'm really glad that you've arrived at this place, but I'm a little bit apprehensive because I can see that this hasn't always happened, but I'm willing to give it, you know, a go. But let's revisit it in a week's time to see what the progress is like. So that then there's also like an actual commitment between the two of us, that this is what we're going to stand behind and these are the adjustments we need to make as a team to support you in what it is that you're wanting to recreate. Now, if I'm going to be invested in that though, you need to show up. Because then it's like, if one of us is holding everything and you keep dropping the ball, well, that's not fair. And that's what creates, like, if you really want to change, then you also know, like, that's what it's riding on. It gets to a point where it's like, you really, like, this is the stuff that can make or break things. Like, it gets to a point where you've got to want the new more than you want the old.
And that takes a lot of courage.
Huge.
It takes so much courage to have this conversation. But for anyone listening at home right now, if you do know this stuff you get to work on, take ownership of it and have the conversation. And also understand your partner or wife might not react the way you just shared. I'll support you. They might say, no, you're a dickhead. You should have done this earlier. And be open to that. But make that commitment to grow. Now, I want to finish with turned on, tapped in. I love that phrase. You've shared a lot of principles and I suppose methods and things we can do to become turned on and tapped in as men. But can you explain how it feels to be turned on and tapped in? Give us like the elevator pitch on how it feels for a man and why they get to commit to becoming that type of man.
You feel the conviction behind your action. You know that your word is your bond, right? You show up with a physiology that expresses that. Your spine is strong. You walk into a room with confidence. You hold your gaze. You know that you've got you and the people around you. And that to me comes from doing all of the daily things that nobody sees. You clap for you before anybody else claps, right? And that's a choice that you have to want to make every single day. And it's not perfect and it's going to be messy and there are days you're not going to want to show up, but give whatever 100% is of that day. If that is all you commit to, 100% of whatever is available that day, that is already the example of a man that can live that.
Amazing. And anyone listening right now, if you don't want to be that guy, really look in the mirror. This has been extremely insightful and valuable. Where can everyone find you?
On Instagram at Maxine Nicole _. And then all my other stuff's in my bio there. So otherwise, Together We Rise, the podcast. That's
awesome.
Another place.
We'll drop the links down below as well.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed being here.
If you want to actually take this framework that I shared and apply it to your life, it's part of our Empowered Man Armory and our app that we've spent almost 250 grand on. If you want access to a powerful system where you can use this Reframe system I just shared with you every single day, then find me on Instagram at Tony Empowered Man, TONI EMPOWEREDMAN. I'll put the link down below as well. Send me a DM saying Reframe, and I'll give you this exact framework as well as early access to the Empowered Man app when it launches.